Open Market Committee meeting this week did not lead to any significant changes in policy, and that's kind of what we're expecting. Now, the Federal Reserve will continue to taper its quantitative easing program, and it made some adjustments in growth and employment projections. But it's still unclear when the Fed will decide to hike the federal funds rate. So it seems content to just let things as they are. But Doug Casey believes that the Fed's monetary manipulations will lead to a meltdown. Casey is a staunch free market advocate, a best-selling author, and the chairman of Casey Research. Now, Casey recently released a documentary called Meltdown America, and I asked him what led to the making of this film. Here's what he had to say.
My opinion is that in 2007, we entered a gigantic financial hurricane, which crested in 2008, 2009. Now we're in the eye of the storm. And I believe that by the end of this year, or certainly in 2015, we're going to go into the trailing edge of this hurricane, but it's going to be much larger and much stormier and last much longer than what we went through in 2008 and 9, which, as you recall, was rather scary.
Yes, absolutely. And you made a lot of assertions in this documentary that I want to get to now. The history of Yugoslavia, that was quite interesting to me. And before you tell me a bit about the history, can you tell me what made you compare the situations in countries like Yugoslavia to the U.S.? And obviously, the U.S. is a country, the largest economy in the world. We all know that. And it's also the world's reserve currency and the largest military in the world, which is helpful, like, you know, if you're talking about a global superpower.
A genuine double-edged sword.
Double-edged sword, yes. But the two seem like totally different animals to me. Why compare the two?
Well, we covered Yugoslavia, Zimbabwe, and Argentina, where I spent a lot of time, as you know, because all three of them have had currency meltdowns. All three of them have totally destroyed their currencies. And that has a lot to do with the troubles that all three of these countries have gone through. Because you've got to remember that money is actually congealed life. When you work it and earn it and save it, it represents the hours of your life that you spend doing so. And when the money that you've saved is destroyed, the time that you spent earning that money is destroyed. So it makes people very unhappy.
It absolutely does. But, you know, Yugoslavia was indebted, and that meant economic collapse was just part and parcel to the ethnic tension that was going on there. But these foreign debts were in currency the Yugoslavia couldn't create. You know, it's a lot like Argentina and like Weimar Germany. Creating it is not an option. And Yugoslavia wasn't getting seigniorage from its reserve currency either. So here's the question. I'm not seeing how this has any relevance to the U.S. You know, they're just totally different beasts. Can you kind of connect them a little better for me?
Yes. It's actually much more serious what the U.S. does to the dollar. I mean, look, when the Zimbabwe government destroyed their dollar, the Argentine government destroyed the peso, and all these secondary countries regularly destroy their currencies, it's very bad news for the people that live in that country.
Yes.
But on the other hand, people from neighboring countries can come in and rebuild with foreign capital. But the United States dollar is the world's reserve currency. All of the world's central banks primarily hold dollars as their reserve currency. The U.S. dollar is used de jure as a currency in 4 countries around the world, where they use the dollar as their actual money. And in about 50 other countries, it's the de facto currency. So when the U.S. government destroys the dollar, and they are on the road to doing so, it's going to be a worldwide catastrophe.
Now, Doug, I want to talk about reserve currencies, because that truly puzzles me a bunch. And, you know, the Chinese yuan, it isn't fully convertible. We know that. And it has a bunch of other problems. And then you also have the Eurozone that has tons of big issues right now, and lots of drama with the ECB from last week. And then, you know, the ruble, the pound, the yen, there's issues with all of these by the economic areas that probably aren't big enough to be a world reserve currency. They just aren't. Like, you know, you can say these things about different countries, but they just might not be large enough. So where is the reserve currency situation as a whole headed?
Well, it's changing rapidly, because although the U.S. dollar has been numero uno since the end of World War II and Bretton Woods, especially in the last 5 years, a lot of countries are trying to not use it. They don't like, for instance, the Russians and the Chinese, when they trade to each other, have been using dollars. But neither one of them want to use the currency of a third country, which has to clear through New York when they're trading with each other. Not only that, but they don't like or trust the U.S. government. And why should they at this point, quite frankly? So lots of countries, the Iranians and the Indians, the Chinese and the New Zealanders, they're all starting to use each other's currencies. And increasingly, there's reliance on gold again, which up until 1933 under Roosevelt, and then actually in 1971 under Nixon, was actually used as the world's currency. Will the yuan or the ruble take over from the U.S. dollar? I suspect what's going to happen is that both of those currencies will become gold-backed, because both the Chinese and the Russian governments are buying huge amounts of gold. And I think that's on their minds.
Now, Doug, if I issue a bunch of Aaron IOUs to people here at RT, and, you know, if I wanted to pay those back, I could just issue more Aaron IOUs. To do that, it becomes a problem when people stop liking Aaron IOUs and they don't want to use them anymore. And they start trying to use another form of, I don't know, maybe my producer Ed IOUs. He starts beating me with all that. Now, let me play you a video clip from Peter Schiff, because it's going to put this into context. So let's play this clip.
And by partnering up with BitPay, it makes it very easy, because the people with Bitcoins can use their Bitcoins to pay, but I don't get the Bitcoins. I get dollars. See, I'm not really accepting Bitcoins. BitPay is accepting Bitcoins, and they're turning around and giving me dollars. So my customers get to pay with Bitcoin, but I get dollars, which of course is what I need, because I got to pay my rent, I got to pay my salaries, I got to pay all my other expenses and my taxes. So I need dollars when I'm running a business in the United States. I don't need Bitcoins.
Now, obviously, Peter claims that he needs dollars because it's a transaction currency in the U.S., and obviously he needs to pay his taxes, and if he doesn't, the government will put him in jail, and that's obviously a problem. So it sounds like the U.S. government has a pretty captive audience here with the dollar, no?
Yes, well, they're not calling the U.S. an empire at this point for nothing. The problem is this, is that for the last 30 or 40 years, the major export of the United States has been dollars. And we've been shipping dollars, just paper receipts out, abroad, and those nice foreigners have been shipping in Mercedes and Sonys and everything else. It's been a wonderful trade for the U.S., and it's given us an artificially high standard of living. The problem is this, is that now there are 8 or 9 trillion, nobody knows for sure, dollars outside the U.S. And those dollars have value mainly because of the confidence of the people that own them.
Right.
But they're losing confidence because we're creating more dollars at the rate of about $1 trillion a year. So what are they going to do with them? There could be a panic out of dollars. And at that point, they'll all flow back to the U.S., where we have to accept them, because Europeans or Japanese don't have to accept dollars. And prices are going to skyrocket in the U.S.
That was Chairman of Casey Research, Mr. Doug Casey himself. Time now for a very quick break, but stick around, because when we return, we're bringing you the best of the very best from this past week. Also, in today's Big Deal Redacted tonight, John F. O'Donnell is giving us his comedic take on